I have pleasure in introducing Mr. Sridhar, Ramanujam Sridhar, who is a communication consultant, author, columnist, teacher, trainer, and of course, above all, a cricket enthusiast. Written many books and owns his evangelical company, which is brand-comm. So may I invite Mr. Sridhar.
Good morning. It's a pleasure to be here. All my life, I've made mistakes. I've always followed women, even to the podium. It's not mine. And the second mistake is I'm unable to say no. When Lata Pandirajan said speak in this convention of women, I stupidly agreed. Which is what makes men what they are. Third is the previous speaker spoke about transactional baggage. I've been married for 28 years and I'm still married. So, actually, I don't know too much about human relations, but I spoke to some of my friends who are actually experts in this and who should be speaking here. So, whatever you heard is what I've heard from them. So, obviously, everybody's spoken about multitasking and that sort of thing. The statistics Sandhya already shared with you, and they look like so where do women stand? Here. The statistics looks like my school report card, so I'm not going to spend too much time of this. Less than 3% of managerial positions in India. Seriously isolated, equivalent of the old boys network. They find it impossible to rally support in the wake of failure. More so than men, they crash and burn. Shows that a significant proportion of women in science, engineering, technology believe that when they fail, they don't get second chances. Women are appointed to management positions under circumstances that differ from those of male managers, being more likely to hold support roles in personnel, training, or marketing rather than performing critical operating or commercial functions. This is what the research says, not what I say. More than half of Indian women experience pressure from their spouses and in-laws to quit working when they get married. After having a first child, 52% of Indian women were criticized for continuing in their career. Over a third of women encounter bias in the workplace, where entrenched old boys networks form nearly insurmountable barriers. Indian women feel they've been treated unfairly, scaling back their ambition or quitting their jobs altogether, reluctance to bring on board women because of the existing mindset that they would not be able to handle irregular hours and travel. Now, we're familiar with all of this. So we all know the problem, right? So what is the solution? Not that I have any, but I think the first solution is, my first serious question is, am I preaching to the converted? If there had been 300 men in this audience, I would have been a lot happier. I mean, there are a handful of old men like me who are only saying the right things and clapping when the women are speaking. But really speaking, you need more men here. We spoke about 30 people being in the first seminar that you did. Next time, if you have 700 people, please have 400 men. That will be the biggest difference that you can make to their lives. Okay? Otherwise, this is like a kiddie party, right? And we are intruders here. The first point is that men will always be boys, and these are the people that you work with. So I hope this commercial works.
Voilà. Professeur, on en est où? Attends.
And they're doctors, mind you. And some of them can actually be animals. That's okay. And I think it's this world that we have to change and rule. Of course, the role of the organization is important, and I'm sure there are enough examples of organizations like Infosys, Mindtree, Accenture, who've done some really important work of recognizing gender equality. So what should companies do? I think there are 3 or 4 things that I think they should do. First is on policies. Obviously, work from home, flexi timing, crash. Ideally, they should be gender agnostic, because half the time we are talking about, women as though they're from a different species or a different planet. But training for managers who implement, I think this is the biggest challenge. All the policies are there, but we don't have managers who implement them or who are rewarded for them, which I'll talk about. How sensitized are the managers to these policies that they have to implement? How well is the organization managed? Is it culture inclusive? And I think this is a very important point that we need to talk about. And ideally, I think all these sort of inclusive policies that we are talking about has to come from the corner office. How committed is the CEO to equality? Remember, people take their cues from the senior management. So ideally, if senior management were aware of this, then, and following what they preach, then it will be a lot better. And I think this is the other thing. Organization celebrates people who are tough, ruthless, who deliver results, who use 4-letter words, etc. But can they reward, celebrate leaders who manage, gender equality and who show the way in this environment? We should celebrate leaders like this. I'm not saying that you should not celebrate leaders who are successful, but those who promote this are really what, discerning companies must do. From organizations, let us move on to the individual and what each and every one of you can and must do, because the organization is a given. At the best, you can change it or move to another place, but what you can do as an individual is, I think, really important. First, the good part, all of you have multiple roles, right? I'll show you an old commercial, and in every role there's jewelry in it. Please notice that. Normally women drive the man around the bend, but actually, strange though it may seem, you can learn a little more from men before you start to lead them. The first is, men always have their eyes outside the organization. They're forever looking at opportunities outside. It could also be outside of marriage, but I'm really talking about the job front. Is your loyalty misplaced? Half the time you're so committed to your organization, maybe your organization is not treating you well. Maybe you're cut out for greater things, better things outside of your company. I know that you rush home at the first opportunity because you have to, but men network, right? I think it's extremely important for women to network. Why can't you network? When did you last refurbish your biodata? You certainly have time for the beauty parlor. I'm sorry, I don't mean, men are like this only, right? But I really think it's important for women, and I think the earlier speaker spoke about this. Look after yourself, spend time on yourself. And to my mind, spending time on yourself is spending time professionally. If your biodata has to be refurbished, if you have to, soup it up, then you really have to do something about it. It's not going past the slide. Probably wants you to absorb it. Excuse me. Okay. I have nothing but admiration for women. Thanks to my mother, my sister, and my spouse. I have to tell you a little about my sister. Till the age of 23, we used to live in the same house. She used to put toothpaste on my toothbrush, and that's the reason why I've turned out like this. But the way women look after men is simply phenomenal, and that's the reason why many of us have turned out to be lazy bums. But it's phenomenal, and I also have to speak about my spouse. Normally, in many of my talks and seminars and classes, I keep making jokes about my wife. And my students often ask, sir, why do you keep talking about your wife? So my question is, I can't talk about your wife, I have to talk about my wife. Right? But I'll have to tell you a quick story. I have 2 minutes, I'll finish, Chairman. Don't underestimate the power of the spouse in your career development, and I speak particularly to the 200 young people, young women who are not married. I was very fortunate. I went to IIM, and there were 2 girls in my class. I ended up marrying one of them. 28 years later, I'm still married to the same lady, more to her as a tribute to her patience rather than any special ability on my part. But there are a few things that perhaps I could share with you. We had our first child 2 years after we got married, and both of us needed to work at that time. So the first child faced the brunt of it. He moved from one child minder to the other. And then we had a second child 3 years later, by which time I had become slightly more prosperous in more ways than one, and my wife could take a break from her work. And the second child, in all fairness, is a lot more confident, aggressive, and a lot like me, I guess, and it helped. But my wife continued to work, and today I'm happy to say that she's the CEO of a company. She earns more than I do. And I think the reason for this is very simple. The moment you stop competing with each other and realize that you're part of the team, that it doesn't matter. I'm very happy if she earns 4 times the amount of money that I do. Then I can sit, watch cricket all over the world and drink beer. I have absolutely no problem. So I think it's very important that you find somebody who's supportive of your career. If you already have somebody, you're very lucky. If you don't have somebody, then it's still okay. I mean, nothing in life is permanent, right? And I think it really takes 2 to succeed, and I'd like to reiterate this point because, in India, you cannot succeed without your family. We are, entrenched in our family. Family is part of everything that we do, and we live for our family. So if somehow the 2 can be married, I think it makes great sense. The odds are against you because you're straddling so many roles, but I'm sure you'll succeed. And there's enough research to suggest that most women are sleep deprived, right? They spend 2 hours less. I'm going to end with a small story which I think it's true. I'm sure all of you know Indra Nooyi. She is actually from Madras, as you know, and vaguely she was my cousin's neighbor, so we used to meet her once in a while. And then she went abroad, and she became famous, and I became history. But there is this story about her when she was in the US, and a few years ago, I'm sure all of you are familiar with this incident where, her being awarded as one of the most powerful and influential women in the US, right? And she did some phenomenal work for PepsiCo. And so she very excitedly called her mother from the awards function saying, Ma, I've been made this. So she said, all that is fine. நீ இப்போ முதல்ல வீட்டுக்கு வா, வரும்போது கொஞ்சம் பால் வாங்கிட்டு வா. நான் மாப்பிள்ளை போய் பால் வாங்கிட்டு வர சொல்ல முடியாது. நாளைக்கு காஃபிக்கு பால் இல்லை. So, that's I'll translate that for the benefit of the chairman. She very excitedly calls her mother and says, I've been voted as the most influential, one of the most influential women in America. She says, all that is very good, but when you come home, please get 1 liter of milk, because I can't ask your husband to go out and get the milk because we don't have milk for tomorrow's coffee. So, that is the story of women. No wonder you had this title of 25/7. I'm really glad that I'm here. May this gathering have several more Indra Nooyis, and may the next convention have a majority of men in the audience. Thank you very much for your patience here.
I can certainly say this, that if I was a woman and much younger, I certainly would have proposed to you. If nothing else.
I also had a lot of hair then.
If nothing else, because in these parts of the world, you don't meet too many men who can be called as metrocentric. Those of you who don't understand that, ask him. Brand-comm chief will say that.